What is living off the grid in the city? Humans have chosen, for a long time now, to partially live off of a certain grid, the natural ecosystem. When our ancestors discovered agriculture and farming long ago, we gradually gravitated to leave the life of hunting and gathering, and settle into communities in fertile and resourceful areas. Our dependence on wild nature became increasingly limited, and we began to manipulate and change our environment for our comfort and advantage. In a sense, we brought all that we need and want from nature, to a defined smaller area. In essence, we gathered, built, and maintained smaller, more efficient and productive ecosystems, where we can more easily get our water, food, and energy. These miniature copies of natural oases became known as villages, towns, and cities. Over time, these places became organized and industrialized, and governed in many ways. Over the millennia, societies have been shaped by advancement, economics, government, and human factors. Many of our abhorrent human traits have corrupted these societies: greed, envy, control. These behaviors have harmed and corrupted many of the systems and institutions that governments have placed for your use in areas we call cities. Living in cities in our current world is the norm, whether is a small city, a town, or a large one, a metropolis. I've added, in the city, in living off the grid, not necessarily because I advocate only being off the grid and in a city, but because I know that it is practical to live off the grid and remain a vibrant participant of modern society. This is something I often have to rebuke: you need not live in isolation in the woods to live off the grid. In fact, you are likely to become a leading contributor to creative and innovative methods, ideas, and technologies that can allow you and others to live not only off the grid, but also more efficiently and smartly, including in the middle of a city. For example, living off the electric grid should naturally encourage you to upgrade to more efficient electronics and appliances, perhaps DC-operated ones. And, if you choose to sever your utility water service, rainwater should suddenly become an attractive choice as a source of clean fresh water. And, you may want to invest in, or build, a rain harvesting system, even if you live in a high-rise apartment building. From solar cookers to solar water heaters, there is a myriad of technologies, old and new, that may spring to life while living off the grid. Most of which can be deployed while living in a city. You may even contribute to a citywide movement with your improvements and technologies. You may live off the grid in a small village, a small town, a mid-sized city, the sprawling suburbs, or even a high-rise metropolis. The point is, you don't have to be isolated, alone, and out of sight, if you choose to live off the grid. It is not illegal to live off the grid, and you may do it following all laws in your area. Although some aspects of living off the grid will be frowned upon, and rejected by neighbors and government officials, you cannot, lawfully, be forced to have or pay for anything or any services you don't wish to have. However, commercial interests and governments will, and do, try their best to make you believe otherwise. Yes, there may be more resistance and challenges to engage in an off-grid lifestyle in a city. If you rent a residential property in the city, for example, there may be more challenges for you to live off the grid, and may require you to be more creative and inconspicuous. For example, you may want to keep your utility services connected, but not use them, instead using your own sources of utility services. This may be necessary because private owners may stipulate you to stay connected to utilities, through contracts and agreements, because it may be in their interest that you do, and may be making money from the situation. Later I will explain these specific challenges. Since most of the world's populations live in cities, this book is primarily focused on living off the grid in a city or town setting, in an individual home or an apartment in a building. But, most ideas and technologies discussed here may be applied in many other smaller, community or remote settings. In summary, living off the grid in the city is completely reasonable, legal, and recommended as it has the potential to change the landscapes of today's cities. Large numbers of off-gridders would reduce many types of pollution in a city, lower resource demands, and improve the quality of life for all city dwellers. However, the current strict social requirements in cities make them more challenging for pioneer off-gridders. Powerful interests are concentrated in the city. The greed and addiction to power of the many controlling city dwellers will surely have them perceive any change in the current wasteful and harmful paradigm as a threat to be dealt with. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please look for the next episode soon. And, please ensure you like this content, and subscribe, as a sign of support, and for me to continue to provide this type of content to people like you. By HVB. May, 2023. Georgia, USA.